Okay, we're here, and you know what? We're here, and what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the live stream. Sorry about that. Late. I was doing like a bunch of stuff last minute. Some with the baby and the camera. I gotta fix this camera, it kind of annoys me. Because it's swaying to the side, left and right. It's very loosely positioned. But wanted to go over some of this Koberger stuff. The entire media fight has been released. Well, we'll do it. I guess we'll do it full screen. I don't know. That's been released. An hour and 36 minutes. The media, Associated Press, I think, fighting the gag order and these false accusations situation, which we'll do the false accusations first. And by the way, where's that video at? I wanted to show this before we even get started. Hold up. I saw some shit like this. I when I came back to the computer, oh, what the hell is this? That guy that was dressed up like he was getting arrested, looked like he was actually getting arrested.
Discretion is advised. Looks like.
Oh no! What happened? What happened?
Oh, okay there. So viewer discretion is advised. Looks like someone is getting arrested now. This.
No, say it ain't so. Isn't that like kind of ironic? You dress up playing the role of somebody that's arrested or being locked up, and then you actually looks like you might be getting arrested. Amazing.
This has been a figure who has been at this courthouse outside for the last several days.
No.
Oh wow, he's being taken to the ground there. And
What
you can
happened?
See here, it looks like they are trying to get people out of the way of the motorcade there.
Oh no.
This individual, he is an anti-Trump protester.
Oh
you can see
no.
that he's wearing black and white stripes, kind of mimicking and
Right for
parodying a prisoner there. And you can see
what they doing? They cheering shit? Yeah, motherfucker, yeah, we got you, man.
Many now Trump supporters
So this was an anti-Trump guy? Oh no.
openly shouting at him as he is taken into custody. So that's quite significant. He has been a fixture, one of these characters in this story throughout the course of the last couple of days. So we got that live. That was very, very interesting. But as you know, viewer discretion is advised during all of these protests. We lost that shot there. Okay, we got this shot back. Ground shot now of the motorcade there. Of hundreds of supporters of the former president, protesters who disagree with the former president's actions, making their voices heard, police really having to settle things down and calm things down. They're taking this individual into custody here. And if you've been following this story closely, you probably recognize that individual. He's been out front and center throughout the course of these protests. And so we'll hopefully learn from some of our reporters down on the ground of why he was taken into custody there. Some excitement a little bit there outside of the courthouse.
Amazing. I saw that clip. I come back and I was like, wow. This is so amazing, huh? Okay. Let's talk about this little Koberger stuff here. Got a bit of while to hang out. I meant to put Brian Koberger in the title. I forgot. No. Okay. So this is a video that came out, I think 2 days ago, something like that. And the title is, this from ABC, False Accusations Complicate Idaho Murder Case and Lives of the Accused. Okay, I got it. Let's see. What led to the anti-Trump? Oh, hell no. So hold on real quick. Flossie sent me this. Before we get to this Idaho stuff, this is what happened. This crazed guy. This is why they arrested him. Oh no.
It's not just Donald.
Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. No. Say it ain't so. no, 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 no. Anti-Trumper jumps in front of motorcade. What the hell?
Donald Trump, who has to take his security very seriously when he deals with this case.
Thank you for confirming that Jack Smith was there. Ken Delaney believed he recognized the people that are witnesses work for Donald Trump. There's lawyers, there's Secret Service, there's aides at Mar-a-Lago. Walt Nada, who's a co-conspirator here, is Donald Trump's personal valet.
Lord Almighty, somebody help these people. Jesus Christ. Or throwing his life on the line. Throw his life away for this political shit. All right, so check it out.
Here's a funny picture, I guess, of me and him at one of my birthday parties. He was the most generous person I've ever met. I miss him, and I'm gonna miss him every day for the rest of my life.
Darren Duncan was in the middle of mourning his best friend Brent Kopacka when he first saw it. Posts online falsely claiming Kopacka was somehow tied to the deaths of 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho.
He was a soldier who went over there to fight for us, and now I gotta defend him after he died. He's not here to talk about it or defend himself.
None of it was true, but Darren unfortunately wasn't alone. Still reeling in its grief, the Moscow community was also hit by a storm of misinformation and lies that would make healing seem impossible. For anyone intrigued by the Idaho murders, there's been plenty of content out there over the last 6 months. YouTube, Reddit, TikTok, you name it.
Oh, shit.
On November 13th, 2022, 4 students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan.
Let's see who they put on there. They put Annie. This is, I forgot the girl. Like, be kind in the comments. No love, no hate or whatever.
Reddit, TikTok.
That's the doctor guy, and this is the psycho or the conspiracy pusher. I forgot her name. She's big, she's huge. I don't know why it just slipped my mind. But a lot of people love her.
TikTok, you name it.
It's a crime. What was it? Is that Kendall? Kendall, Nancy?
On November 13th, 2022, 4 students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were stabbed to death in the middle of the night at their off-campus home at the University of Idaho.
That's
then,
Randall?
when there was
Christina
no arrest
Randall.
for several weeks, some web sleuths decided to take the investigation into their own hands.
I just want to give a quick and crazy update that's happening.
This is what I think happened in the Idaho murders.
All 4 of them had been stabbed.
28-year-old Brian Kohberger was just arraigned. His trial is set to begin in October. For so many in the Moscow community, the national online response to the murders clouded what really should be at the center of the story: the lives lost.
They loved life. They lived life to the fullest, both of them.
Kaylee Gonzalez and Maddie Mogan were both seniors and longtime best friends.
If I had 1 or 2 words to describe Maddie
This guy was really sweet.
May,
Liked a lot of things that he said. It was really sad.
An angel. She just made me proud.
One of their other roommates, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, was also killed that night, alongside her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin.
Xana was just an incredible person. I've never met someone like Xana before, ever.
Ethan was a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity and loved sports. He was also a triplet. His brother and sister were both students at the university. From family members to classmates to community members, most were in some way affected by the senseless murders. And in the months that followed, conspiracy theories and false allegations have reopened the community's wounds.
We're about to kick this off. We have about 135 people waiting on us already. Last time we had 1,900 people in the live chat.
It's a drunk turkey show, mother trucker!
Daniel J. and his 2 friends dreamed up the idea for the Drunk Turkey YouTube show and podcast over late night talks and a lot of beers. The 3 friends asked we don't use their...
He got the focus right. That's what I used to use. I still have that somewhere. It's a nice classic audio interface.
last names due to safety concerns.
Our initial goal was conspiracies, UFOs, aliens, ghosts, things of that nature.
Daniel R., who goes by Big Blue, is one of the co-hosts. When did you guys really start to see subscribers change?
I think it was for sure when we started doing the Idaho case.
Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Murder Mystery Show. Today, we're trying to track down a potential suspect.
The team has recorded over 100 episodes on the so-called King Road.
You're saying that this audio is not in sync? The video I'm playing?
Murders to date. Daniel J. is a former police officer, but with Drunk Turkey, he says he's just a regular guy. But doesn't it kind of muddy the water? You know, when you have so many people.
It looks in sync to me. I don't know.
That are not directly involved in the investigation of the case, giving all sorts of information. How are people supposed to know what is the truth and what's not?
When it comes to like true life and true crime and stuff, we try to stay fact-based for the most part. Like, is there speculation and opinions? Yes, it's ours.
The three friends say they don't have any bad intentions and are careful about the sourcing they use. They sometimes add disclaimers. But still, they've amplified a number of false allegations tied to the murders of the 4 students by just having various guests and listeners call into their show. In one episode, a woman called in and falsely claimed Brent Kopacka was tied to the crime. One of Brent's close friends has said that he felt like that podcast ruined his friend's legacy. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I feel pretty bad but I don't think it ruined his legacy. I mean, at that time, we weren't even that big to where everybody in the world heard it. I mean, if it's personal.
This Brent Kopacka, this was the guy, and I remember hearing about this story. Pullman, according to the Pullman Police Department, responded to the 1000 block of Lauder Street Wednesday evening to report a man allegedly threatened to kill his roommates in their apartment. Officers tried to speak to Kopacka, who barricaded himself inside his apartment, and Whitman County requested assistance from the Washington State Patrol later that night. Pullman Police crisis negotiators and the Whitman County Regional SWAT team responded, but Kopacka began to fire in his apartment. Kopacka was fatally shot by a SWAT team earlier Thursday morning. He was found dead by the SWAT team when they cleared the apartment. Okay. So I remember when this happened and people were thinking that maybe he was involved or something like that. I don't know if I talked about it or not. I think I might have mentioned this incident that happened, but I don't remember.
So to him, I apologize.
The Moscow police.
Personal, that big to where.
And I guess the guy had PTSD, served in the military.
Everybody in the world heard it. I mean, if it's personal to him, I apologize.
The Moscow police continuously push back against the false allegations throughout the investigation.
The best thing that most people can do to help is to stop with any kind of rumors and just seek official information that comes out of the Moscow Police Department.
Warning those spreading misinformation that anyone engaging in threats or harassment, whether in person, online, or otherwise, needs to understand that they could be subjecting themselves to criminal charges.
Yeah, but when they said that, like, I knew that wasn't actually going to happen.
Duncan was devastated to see Kopacka's name falsely tied to the crime weeks after he died, and it went far beyond the Drunk Turkey show.
All this stuff that was not true at all, and it's all said by people who don't know him, never even met him.
According to investigators, back on December 15th, officers responded to Kopacka's Washington home after reports that he had threatened his roommates. The home just miles away from the King Road crime scene. He barricaded himself for hours, at one point firing a gun. Police say they fired back and shot Kopacka. In Kopacka's obituary, his family said he had fought a courageous battle against PTSD for years after returning home from serving in Afghanistan. We reached out to the family but did not hear back. Duncan says mourning Kopacka while also defending his legacy has been painful. Do you have a message for those people that continue to bring up Brent's name?
You guys are not detectives. Leave people alone. Let the professionals do it and just shut your mouth.
Oh, shit. Damn. To let the professionals do it. I mean, it's a thin line with this, especially with the call-in shows. You know, I used to get a lot of calls, too, when we're doing big stories. And it's a thin line. I mean, because sometimes you have to kind of push back a little bit. I remember one time I had gotten this cease and desist. I tried to push back. It made it. It's kind of, yeah, like I said, it's like a thin line. I try to push back a little bit, or just make them be like, "Well, this is your opinion. We don't know that this is true." It's kind of like when you're taking calls. It's like open air. But I don't watch that channel. I've heard of the channel. I heard about them when the Brian Koberger stuff was happening. So I can't really speak to them. But I've seen some other channels that were just blatantly pushing like ridiculous, crazy shit. I mean, to the point of like straight out accusing people. Like even the psychic chick. That psychic chick that was accusing the teacher. Or even like the Kylie Rodney, where I was accused of crazy shit. And these people and some of these YouTubers just went along with it just cause for the views and shit, and then when it's found out it's not true, some of these people don't even correct it or nothing. They just fucking keep it going. I mean, I've never been too interested in just continuing forever to talk about something unless there's like actual updates or trial stuff coming up. But like, just to theorize for like months and months and months and months and months and months, it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm kind of like moving on to the next thing, to the next story or whatever. But I mean, that's what people online do too. They speculate like on the Reddit forums. But I mean, oh God. Yo, when I'm looking at I was just scrolling because I typed this guy Brent Kopeka, right? In scrolling, it says here, Brent Kopeka obituary signed by Brian Koberger. I just clicked it, but it's like a private community. Do you think there's a possible link between Brent Kopeka? Opinions on Brent Kopeka? That's what people do online. So, interesting that they're on ABC though. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the Vanity Fair op-ed and that private investigator that came out talking about. I mean, I wonder if this is a turn for the things that maybe they're going to start kind of exposing YouTubers, maybe from the media. It's I don't know. It's a thin line because people want to talk about it. People want to call in. And what I was mentioning, I forgot. My mind is bouncing. That one time I got a cease and desist, which I think was complete BS. Nothing ever happened, but they had referenced some time when somebody called into my show and said something, and they were trying to hold me liable for what somebody said. So I don't know if this, disclaimers maybe help out, or, that's not my opinion. I guess I have to be careful. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I've been through this shit myself. All right, well, I guess let's get started with this thing here, this thingamajig. Let's see what we can do. I'm gonna do it on the screen, put it a little bit bigger. I don't know how we're gonna do this. Something like that, I think. I don't know. All right, so this is I haven't watched this yet. I heard it was kind of spicy. This is the Associated Press, the media joined up together and fighting this gag order. Finally.
All right.
Hold on.
Thanks very much. Please be seated. Good afternoon, everybody.
Just saying everything in my opinion.
Okay, let's sit on the record, please.
Fix the volume.
We are now on the record. State versus Brian C. Koberger, CR 29.
Oh shit, Olivia.
805 in the courtroom. Mr. Koberger is in the courtroom with his attorneys. Ms. Taylor, Mr. Logston, and I'm sorry, I missed you because you were behind the screen earlier, but also Ms. Massa is also present. Representing the state is Mr. Thompson and Mr. Rudley, and we're really here for the motion Associated Press et al. I'll call you Non-Party Media Coalition. So if Ms. Olson and Mr. Carone could come up, or I don't know if it's just going to be you, Ms. Olson?
I will be the only one arguing, Your Honor.
Okay, well thank you. So we have a lot of things to sort of sort through, and I know some of your clients are listening on Zoom, and I can't look at all of you while I'm looking at here, but...
Oh, just wanted to say this real quick too. Jane, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, to the guy that got hit in with the boxing glove. Amazing. Rachel J, thank you for the membership.
So I think we probably need to start with the...
When it says at the end of the ABC video, they reached out to YouTube about the crime channels. No, they didn't. Oh, shit. Uh-oh. Are they really?
Our thanks to Maria. We reached out to TikTok and YouTube about their efforts to address misinformation, but they did not provide comment. You can see...
Oh, damn, they're trying to take out the YouTubers. They want the competition gone. Oh, shit.
Motion to intervene, but let me just tell you my thoughts about that. I think that after reading the Supreme Court's decision, the coalition has standing, and so I think you're entitled to be here and make the argument. But I don't know that I need to grant intervention. But I don't know, what's your view of that?
Your Honor, we think just to have the clearest record possible that the court should grant intervention for this limited purpose. We think that would frankly also be helpful should the situation arise again, since there's simply no rule that sets out whether we can do this or not, which is among the reasons we went the wrong place the first time. So we would ask that the court grant the motion. I don't intend to offer any other argument other than was offered in the briefing, Your Honor.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Rudley or Mr. Thompson.
Your Honor, we don't have an objection to granting the motion to intervene for the limited purpose of challenging the amended non-dissemination order.
Okay, Ms. Taylor?
We don't have an objection either.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll grant that request for the limited purpose. The reason I was worried about that is I don't want the media to be really, so to speak, a party that has to be involved in so many things that we're going to be dealing with. So, but I will grant that request for the limited purpose of what we're talking about here.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then there's just one other housekeeping matter. As the court indicated, some of our clients in the coalition are participating by Zoom. They have been informed and directed that they may not record the proceeding that's occurring by Zoom, but they may report on it after the fact, just like any reporter here in the courtroom, or as if they were with us here in person as our party representatives.
Okay, agreed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. The next issue, though, is this motion for shortened time. I didn't sign that proposed order. Apparently, there's an objection, and let me hear from you first about what that might mean for what we're going to do today.
Well, Your Honor, I think given that the hearing has been scheduled today, the court has in essence granted the motion for shortened time unless it would be allowed. Don't just slow down. Yeah, sorry about that. I think the court has indicated it's going to grant that motion. We're having the argument on it today. I think the one potential sort of hiccup there or sticking point there might be with respect to the evidence that Mr. Koberger wants to introduce, to which we do object, given that we became aware of it 3 days ago, and there simply hasn't been enough time to vet the information that they seek to provide. And as we set out in our reply brief, we think it's not appropriate anyway, given it's the time for them to have introduced evidence in support of the gag order that's in place was in January of this year. So I think that might be the only sort of hiccup with respect to whether the court might end up shortening time or giving them additional time to present that evidence.
Well, I haven't approved the shortened time because I wanted to hear from counsel how they viewed that. I know when I talked to Mr. Carone last time, I was concerned about the short time, and I was really, I don't know, maybe it wasn't very direct, but encouraged that we allowed a little more time, because I know there was going to be a lot of briefing. At that time, I think Mr. Logston, said that it's going to be really difficult for us to get things together for an expert, but we'll do the best we can, is what I remember. And so here we are. I was also concerned about the massive amount of briefing that I had to go through very quickly, which I did. And I want to make sure, because this is a very important decision, that everybody has the opportunity to weigh in with what they want to present. So maybe I should go to Mr. Logston and see.
May I offer one other comment?
Well, yes, go ahead.
Your Honor. So, Your Honor, understand, I think we all agree that this is an important matter to address, and that there are significant interests at stake among both the parties and then the interveners. And I think our concern in wanting to move it forward sooner rather than later is that this gag order has been in place since January, since virtually the inception of the case, and it has rendered harm to our clients' interests. And so that's why we wanted to move forward more quickly. And that's why we had offered, we thought, as sort of a interim step, and we were at the hearing this morning, we heard your comments to Mr. Logston at the end, but that's why we had sort of offered as an interim step, vacating the gag order pending a more fulsome evidentiary hearing.
By the way, I mean, just so you know, I find that to be a very kind of inaccurate and distasteful.
Oh, distasteful
name for the order.
Wait, why is that distasteful? Can I rewind it?
Inception of the case, and it has rendered harm to our clients' interests, and so that's why we wanted to move forward more quickly. And that's why we had offered, we thought, as sort of a interim step, and we were at the hearing this morning, we heard your comments to Mr. Logston at the end, but that's why we had sort of offered as an interim step, vacating the gag order pending a more fulsome evidentiary hearing.
By the way, I mean, just so you know, I find that to be a very kind of inaccurate and distasteful name for the order.
What is it, my interim or a gag order? That's what it's called, right?
And I had trouble about that for a long time, and it's not called that. So I would appreciate not using that term. It's distasteful.
Distasteful? What?
And I think it's inaccurate, and I think it's been overstated, just the impact of that order, just to let you know.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
What am I missing? Gag? He doesn't like that it's called a gag order? Or was it like her description? I don't understand what's up with this. That's why I really don't think they're going to have cameras in this shit.
Well, and so you are, why don't I go to Mr. Logston and we'll see how we feel about the presentation of the evidence and or expert testimony.
He doesn't like gag order?
Your Honor, we have two witnesses. We also filed, as I'm sure the court is aware, a motion that we believe the court has the ability to take judicial notice of the media coverage in this case. The
gag order, not okay with judge. It's a non-dissemination order. Oh, so he don't like that term? Oh. That's what it is, though. That's exactly what it is.
Media, as we understand it, is essentially objecting to there being
like a safe word, a safe space word or some shit.
A record made at this point. Our stance is, this is a live issue, and this will not stop being a live issue.
It's the pronoun for gag.
So long as our client is in this case. And as the facts, or even if you get a United States Supreme Court case to come down a year from now, it would change us too. But as things change, everyone has the right to come into this courtroom and say, we'd like to have the non-dissemination order reconsidered, amended in ways that are going to match with what's actually happening. The media has made the point that when this originally was put in place, it was just the parties agreeing that we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything in court and not doing it to the press. And so we didn't, at the time, feel the need to make a big record about what was going on. I think the court mentioned that to some extent what's going on is somewhat obvious. And while we would concur with that, given the media's point and given some of the case law out there, we thought it would be wisest to make a record at the very least of the amount of coverage, of the consistency of the coverage, and to some extent of the substance of that coverage. And that's what Ms. Saucier would be talking about from company TrueScope. And then we also brought in a psychologist, professor of psychology from Eastern Washington University, to basically just kind of talk about why we care. I mean, and there are reasons we care that we talked about in the brief that aren't related even to the biases and things like that, or we just have overall concerns about, as a country, how do we resolve these cases? Is it in the press or is it in a courtroom? And those are issues that, we don't necessarily need these witnesses to get to. But to the extent that the United States Supreme Court has clearly shown that we do concern ourselves with the effect on jurors, even the effect on ourselves and our witnesses, that we brought in a social psychologist who can explain what those issues are a little bit better than we just sort of understand. But in terms of, our position is important in these things. We think that they're best to make the record in the case. And I think the court is correct. We thought it would be better to have more time so that everybody could take their best shot. I feel like we did a pretty good job of warning everyone that we were going to be bringing witnesses today. But that, at the same time, like I said, it's a live issue. The court could issue something today, the media could go back, find themselves an expert that they think blows our whole case out of the water, and then come right back to court and say, well, let's do this again. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So I certainly don't have an issue if the media decides what they'd like to do is have additional time to find their own witnesses, for that matter, to prepare more. We're not going to object to any requests to move this here.
Distasteful. That's my word, yeah.
Mr. Bradley, you
Your Honor,
addressed that. Maybe you want to come up for the mic. Thank you.
I'll be brief. The state has no position on the motion to shorten time or hear additional evidence.
Thank you. All right, so Ms. Olson, let me back up. I'll tell you where I am on this. Well, number one, I agree with Mr. Logsdon that this is a moving process, and analyzing this going back to whenever it was imposed is not particularly relevant at this point. A lot of other things have happened. If there was no order in place right now, I could impose it today based upon the evidence that was presented. But there's not really any evidence presented yet, and that's why I asked for potential evidence to support the record. I think we can probably agree that this is a high-profile case. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there in the public, and that's quite concerning. My job is to protect the First Amendment as well as the Sixth Amendment, and there is a balancing in that. I don't think there's any question about any of that. So I'm inclined to allow, the testimony and the evidence. I'm inclined to take judicial notice of the submission of Mr. Koberger, but I am happy to put this out to give you and your clients an opportunity to respond to that, because I know it's incredibly short notice.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's 3 days notice, but we addressed some of that. We prefer to go forward today, and as Mr. Longston just acknowledged, if we feel like there's evidence that we find later, we'll probably just file a motion to reconsider it. And I would just like to address one point here. We understand that things evolve, and we're at a different point today on June 9th of 2023 from where the two parties were on the first, I think, January the 3rd, and then with the court in chambers, with no court reporter taking down anything that happened, where you had to file a redacted memo, and then the amended non-dissemination.
No, guys, this didn't happen today. This was, yeah, I guess it was Friday. It wasn't immediately released. They released this. We haven't watched this yet. They released this. Well, it was on the Court TV website. It actually was put up Friday, I guess, at night on the Court TV website. I didn't realize it until today. Rachel was telling me that Emily Baker was playing it, and so that's how I found out that it was out. It's only out on the website, though. It's not out I haven't seen it posted on YouTube. So
that came out of that. We understand we're in a different place, but our point is that the court enters that without any.
Oh, and thank you, Christy, for the 4-month membership. Says thanks for all you do, Mel. Banana Pants, thank you for the membership. Says Sir Gags a lot. And Princess Chicken, thank you for becoming a member. Says thank you, Mel, for everything that you do to keep us informed. I can't wait for the next trial. I don't know what the next one's going to be. I really don't know or think that this Koberger thing's going to happen. They got that YMV, whatever his name is, on trial right now, which people are saying is interesting. I'm not sure what's next. I'm kind of really particularly picky. There could be Show Business, the lady that put chains around the guy's neck. They were both high on meth, strangled this guy to death just so she could feel his heartbeat coming out of his chest. Did all kinds of stuff to him while he was deceased, sexual stuff while he was deceased. Then I don't know which order the things happened, but dismembered him, cut off his penis, cut off his head, put his head in a bucket. She leaves. Mother comes downstairs because this happened in her mother's basement and sees a bucket. She looks inside the bucket and sees her son's head. That trial is coming up. I don't know if they're going to be streaming that or not. We also have the suitcase trial that I really don't know if it's actually going to happen. They pushed it back so many times. The lady that tells her boyfriend to get in the suitcase somehow tricks him to get in there. He gets inside. They're both drinking, and she leaves him in there, records him. He's begging to please let me out, and she goes upstairs and goes to sleep. He dies. So there's quite a bit of stuff coming up. It's a little picky, but we have picked up on trials because, I mean, I think it was the other year we did one, I think, right? I think the first trial was Johnny Depp, and then after that, this year, I think it was this year, we did Alex Murdaugh. We've done Letitia Stout. We're already 2 trials in. And I'm pretty sure we're definitely going to pick up another one this year, you know? So
findings of fact that warranted such a non-dissemination order that was what we assert is the order in place now is overbroad and was procedurally deficient. And that's really our concern is that there is a First Amendment harm that occurs from a non-dissemination order that is overbroad and where there was simply no opportunity for anyone other than the parties to weigh in behind closed doors with the court. And I was here this morning, and so I heard Mr. Gray say that he disagreed with the record that's been made on that. But I think that's a significant concern, and that the court should be concerned about the procedure that was used initially to enter that non-dissemination order. And that's why we continue to take the position that if the court feels a more fulsome record is needed, that the order in place is simply not justified by what the court did back in January, and it should be vacated pending the development of that more fulsome record, Your Honor.
Well, whether that's accurate or not, I mean, that's why I'm inclined to allow any of the parties and the media to add to the record. I just want to remind everybody this initial order was an agreement. It was a stipulation. It wasn't that Judge Marshall just pulled it out as, air. It was an agreement between the parties. There are only 2 parties to protect the Sixth Amendment. That was the reason for that, and I would note because I think this is missed in the discussion, that this was going heavy well before Mr. Koberger's arrest. So there was a lot of speculation, a lot of criticism, a lot of bad information.
Oh, shit.
And that would trigger for any lawyer for either side to try to protect the integrity of the investigation and the future court process. So just try to, I mean, I do think that this thing has kind of grown a bit out of proportion from where it started and where it is now. Because obviously, if you look at a newspaper or the TV or YouTube or TikTok, or I don't look at any of it, but media has freely talked about this case.
And?
So I think that's really kind of the issue. Like, do we have a responsibility to talk to the lawyers about releasing information that shouldn't be released to the public and allow the media to follow the rule of, or the First Amendment freely, which they have. What I hope is that they do it responsibly and professionally and accurately. But that's really up to the media. I can only control so much, and you can control only so much of your clients and other media and media that are not traditional. That is really the struggle, and that's why the order was entered originally. Just to give you some background.
Understand, Your Honor. Now I'm going to ask my good friend Bill Thompson if I can have a lot more. Sorry about that.
How dare she get water?
Well, Your Honor, I think interveners well understand why the parties did what they did in the interest of the parties in this. Interveners well understand. Frankly, for Mr. Thompson, and I've been in Mr. Thompson's position in a capital case.
I know you have, and I know you understand the issues here, and that can collide.
Right, and what we know is that the state wants to ensure that its investigation, or that the case that its investigators and its prosecutors put together and presented to a grand jury and obtained an indictment, that they can present that case the strongest way possible without having to worry about external events, and certainly external events they can't control. And we know that Mr. Koberger and his counsel have a tremendous interest here in fighting for his freedom and likely fighting for his life. I heard the court earlier today, and I think all of us who have practiced in this area at all know this is likely a death penalty case, but that, those are not decisions that have been officially made yet, and that hasn't been put before the court, but that's why Ms. Massoff has been appointed to help represent Mr. Koberger. She's an excellent attorney. I know her well. She will do a very good job for him. And I know that they have an interest in making sure that when it comes time to pick a jury, if this is a case that ends up going to trial, that they can pick jurors who will fairly and impartially hear the evidence and make a decision based on the things that they hear from the witness stand and not based on what they see on Twitter or the internet or watching the news. And that is a fundamental interest of this entire system, which frankly I spent most of my career working in.
Well put. Thank you.
But there are also, this court has tools in addition to non-dissemination orders to make sure that there is the best chance to get a fair and impartial jury when this case is heard, aside from a non-dissemination order, which I'll come back to the parts where I find to be overbroad and not having been procedurally accurate. There's probing voir dire. There are jury questionnaires. There's change of venue. There will be the passage of time, and I think that's where this is a potential, because this is a potential death penalty case, that comes into play. If the state files a notice of death penalty, and become the death penalty case, I would be stunned if this case went to trial on October the 2nd of 2023, because the defense will need to do a mitigation investigation. The defense will need to look at experts from a host of areas who will be able to present evidence about Mr. Koberger, his life, and why the aggravating factors that would perhaps the state would argue for, why those should apply, and why the jury should choose a sentence, a different sentence.
That's a shame. Thank you for the super chat. Says that I was gonna say that's a shame. Says it, whatever. Says, yo, what the F is this lady wearing in court on a huge case for her legacy media client? Look like she's selling granola at the farmer's market. Oh shit. Oh, that's distasteful. Miyu, thank you for the 9-month membership. Says Mel, hi, glad you're to be a part of your amazing chat. Thank you. Twitter Padded, thank you for the membership. Says thanks for all you do, Mel. All aboard.
It gets to that point after a guilt phase. That takes a substantial period of time, years in many cases. And the passage of time, I understand, we've looked at all of the materials, not in great detail, the materials that Mr. Logsdon submitted from Ms. Saucier and the professor from Eastern Washington. And we understand that there was a lot of publicity. Now, I will tell you one of the things that was most surprising in the Duncan case, and I gotta say also, when you're doing a big case like that, you're just living that case, you think that's all anybody thinks about. But the most surprising thing to me when we picked the jury in the Duncan case, 3 years after the murders, was that there were people who hadn't even heard about it. Hadn't even heard about it. I mean, and that's a case where, granted, the trial there happened in Boise. That's a case where, again, we didn't have social media to the same extent yet. But there were cars in Coeur d'Alene driving around with Kill Duncan bumper stickers. And there was a donut shop that had on its magnetic reader board, Kill Duncan. That's pretty prejudicial pretrial publicity, and those things would get picked up in the media. So that passage of time, with the probing voir dire, the questionnaire, and the change of venue, all did a lot to ensure that there was a fair and impartial jury that was impaneled. And so those tools, we would submit, are available to this court. Because in addition to the very important interests that Mr. Koberger has, and the very important interests that the state has, and I think as Mr. Rudley acknowledged this morning, the state also has an interest in ensuring there's a fair trial. The media does have an interest in enforcing or fulfilling the dictates of the First Amendment and the free press. And those are equally important principles, at least at the stage of beginning to weigh them, Your Honor. It's through the members of the media and the press that the public learns about these proceedings, that the public is able to understand how the criminal justice system functions, that the public is able to understand how the prosecutors perform, how the defense attorneys perform. That's how they learn about details of the investigation when they're released, either in the courtroom or through release through the probable cause affidavit, so they can make their independent judgments about how is our system working, so they can be educated. Just as the court did this morning when it started the hearing this morning by pointing out and explaining why someone would come into court and not enter a plea when called upon to do so, when the court has to enter a plea for them. And those who have been in the criminal justice system have seen that before. So it's that kind of educating that can be done by the court, by the people who actually know about the proceedings. I see no reason why, after that proceeding, Mr. Thompson might not have been able to, or Mr. Lawson and Ms. Taylor, been able to answer a question about, wow, well, that's unusual. Can you really do that? And someone say, well, you know, actually, under the rules of criminal procedure in Idaho, or under case law in Idaho, you actually can just not stand silent and not enter a plea, and then the court has to enter not guilty pleas for you. That would have been a very helpful thing to have done. And I think it is educational things like that that can be relayed through the media, that the current non-dissemination order restricts these attorneys you're speaking about, or really any attorney, because it's the way it's phrased, any attorney with interest, for a party with interest in the proceeding. That's pretty broad. That's extremely broad. It's not just Mr. Thompson. It's not just Mr. Lobson, Ms. Taylor, and Ms. Matzoff. What does that mean to be a party in interest in the proceeding? We talked about the motion to intervene. We wanted to make sure it was a limited purpose so that we suddenly don't become parties with an interest in the proceeding, and then I can't walk outside and talk about what went on in court. So Your Honor, what we're asking for is the court also to look at what is the First Amendment, what role does it play in the court's analysis, and how can it balance those First Amendment rights and use those other tools that are available to it, particularly at this stage of the proceeding, to ensure that the Sixth Amendment right is observed and that the First Amendment right is observed. And we think, Your Honor, in doing that, you have to take a look at the non-dissemination order and apply strict scrutiny analysis. There was lots in the briefing about strict scrutiny analysis. We think the court gets there two different ways. One, because we view this as a prior restraint. In order to have news or publication, you have to have not only print the information, but you have to be able to receive it. And if you can't receive it, you can't present it to the public.
Is there law on that?
There is, Your Honor. There is, Your Honor. It's in our briefing, and I would ask the court to take a look at pages 15 and 19. It's not in one of the big three Supreme Court cases we've all talked about. It comes primarily from the Young case, but that's where that comes from. There's nothing in those three Supreme Court cases that says that you don't apply strict scrutiny when it's a restraint on something other than the media, other than perhaps the Gentile case where it says they're talking about the lawyers, and it says that you still have to be able to show that it's prejudicial publicity. And then you have to have a narrowly tailored tool that's designed to restrict it. And regardless of what the test is, there has to be prejudicial pretrial publicity. Publicity that could prejudice Mr. Koberger's right to a fair trial. So publicity generally, and I think this is where Mr. Lawson submits and associates information, there's no reason to think that publicity generally is prejudicial. It's a publicity about the case, and it allows people to hear about the case. But some of the things people are hearing about the case may not be all that flattering for the state. It may be not prejudicial to Mr. Koberger, and may suggest things about the investigation and how it was done. So publicity in and of itself is not prejudicial. And that's why I think when we get to what is out there, that courts typically rely on first blush is Idaho Rule of Professional Conduct 3.6. And those 9 items of what attorneys for parties in the litigation may not comment on. Those are rules that are vetted, and they're the same as the ABA rules and the basic rules that everywhere has to follow about. You can't, if you're a prosecutor, you don't get to walk out of the courtroom and say, well, in this case, we've got the guy because X, Y, Z, whatever. And if you're, you just can't do that under the rules of professional conduct. And there's no reason to think any of these lawyers, who all are fine officers of the court, are going to ignore their obligations under Rule 3.6. I understand their desire and their interest in having something more prophylactic so that they can operate in a way that doesn't, so they frankly just don't have to worry about that. But it's our position that the First Amendment requires more and much more, and requires a narrow tailoring. And that when you have a non-dissemination order that starts out and says all extrajudicial judicial statements, it cannot be made. And
I can fix that, can't I?
Sure.
I mean, so if I just, and I kind of raised this morning too, that if I am more specific about who is touched by this order and what can people say and what can't they say, then that would help your concerns, wouldn't it?
It would, Your Honor.
And I'm acknowledging this because your motion is to completely vacate it.
Absolutely, Your Honor. And the reason it's to completely vacate it is because we don't feel it's narrowly tailored. And so a overbroad, non-narrowly tailored order that, and I respect what the court said about procedurally how it came into place. That might be one where we just have to agree to disagree. But it's our position that such an order should not. I think Rule 3.6 continues to sort of be the guiding star on that, because it lists the things that tend to be most prejudicial. And so certainly, if the court takes a different approach, we will look at that, and we would certainly hope that the current order we think is overbroad and procedurally deficient, and we recognize the court's And we recognize the court's ability, to hear all that it's going to hear, and if it chooses to craft something and still thinks one is appropriate, obviously we'll take a look at that and see whether we think it still suffers from the same deficiencies as the current amended non-discrimination order. I would also say, Your Honor, because I heard your questions to Mr. Gray.
Yeah, I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you were here. Yeah. So yeah, you might want to address.
And so this would be our position with the concept generally, setting aside our position that it shouldn't be there at all. But I think that limited to Rule 3.6 is palatable, at least because that's the obligation that the lawyers on both sides already have. I think it would be very difficult to then have a list of things that you could say. You could say this, but you can't say this, because then it would be impossible to think of every possible statement that could be made. But if there's clear direction on the statements that cannot be made, and they are the things that are set out expressly in Rule 3.6, that gives very clear direction, is consistent with the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct, and would leave sort of no guessing for the people who do want to provide adequate guidance and information. And then we would also ask the court not to do something about the language that says attorneys for all interested parties. I think, frankly, that's sort of just inherently vague as to what that means. And when there are very specific parties here before the court, I think the court could really could narrow that a tremendous amount. And I heard the dialogue this morning with Mr. Gray regarding witnesses, and I will say, Your Honor, that's obviously not. I think our preference would be witnesses not be included. But when one looks at, for example, the family member witnesses, and the fact that they may be called, certainly if there is a sentencing phase of this, and they may be called by the prosecution to show victim impact, to provide that information. There's very detailed law on what you can have a family member say in a capital sentencing hearing, and it's usually the kind of thing that is, my child was a great kid, they brought, the light of everybody's life. Here's the video of them dancing at their, 5th grade Christmas program, and that sort of thing. It's not details about the case. So we, for those reasons, we would think something that restricts witnesses who are not going to be fact witnesses in the guilt phase, we think that would certainly be overbroad as well.
Okay, so let's go back to, because we that was great. Thank you, I appreciate it.
The video stopped? What are you talking about? Did they shut me down or something? Let's see. Oh, YouTube is not receiving enough to maintain a smooth streaming experience? Oh, it cut out for a second. Did it come back? Let me see. That's weird. Maybe it's the weather. I mean, the connection's back up, but it might have dropped for a second. Let me take a look what it looks like. No, we can move! And everybody left too. Oh, we're done with this. We're not staying for this shit. Let me see. See. I don't know. I see myself. Why is the chat on the screen? The fuck? Oh. What in the hell? That's weird. What in the hell's going on? Okay. You guys still see me? You're back. Cut out twice. Was buffering a bit. It's ended. It's kicked me out. Really? Let's see. Myself. Why is the chat on the screen? Amazing. Maybe it's the weather. Back? The bitrate cannot keep up with her. We're here, and we're keep getting kicked out. It's YouTube. It still says, let me see here, stream health. Maybe I gotta turn up the bitrate a bit more. Are we good? Are we back?
Everything that you said, that I am going to grant the request to present the evidence, or I don't know, just the submissions, we'll just say, and take judicial notice of that and allow for the testimony. But you will have an opportunity to come back if you choose to do that.
Well, I'll probably do some cross-examination today. It probably won't be as tight as it would be if I had an opportunity.
Absolutely, you have the opportunity to do that.
And I think, Your Honor, just to be clear, we made some arguments in our reply brief about why these individuals are not the experts. They would never qualify as experts under the federal rules of criminal or civil procedure based on the things that they list in their CVs and their prior work. I mean, if they're only offering Ms. Saucier to say there's lots of publicity about this case, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with this. But I would point the court to now, and then I don't know if Mr. Longston asked her about this on direct, but in her report, that's a little
LB said is kicking out all the liberals. Are we here? You guys good or no? You back?
tables, and it's not, the version we have is not tabulated.
Okay,
But there are two tables, and one says authority figures share a voice, and then non-authority figures share a voice. And on authority figures share a voice, one of the people that's listed on there is David Nye. I mean, I don't know why David Nye is someone that they're saying is an authority figure on all of this. David Nye is a federal district court judge in Idaho, as the court knows. Maybe they meant Jeff Nye, who I think is assisting Mr. Thompson, but that's, I anticipate is an error in the report. And then if you look at the next page, non-authority figures share a voice, and then share a voice media coverage. The person with the greatest stories in the data set is Rebecca Boone, who's an AP reporter, and then the same thing with shared voice media coverage. And of course, the AP stories run all over the country and they get shared in different publications. So I suspect that might be one of the things Ms. Saucier will say about that. But the definition she uses in her key terms defined is authority figures are experts who are currently working on a case.
I need you to put this down. Thank you.
Authority, that's too much caffeine this morning. Authority figures are experts who are currently working on the case. Well, David Nye is not currently working on the case. And then non-authority figures are, per definition, experts who currently work in or formerly worked in the field of law enforcement, police or FBI law, such as lawyers or other court-related personnel, but who are not working on this case. Rebecca Boone isn't any of those things, and she's the primary person they put forward in that area. So if the court wants to consider that, I mean, I think just right off the bat, there are a number of things that make it inherently unreliable.
Let me just be candid. I mean, I'm not going to put a lot of weight on that because, as you said, starting out is, I mean, there's no question about how much information has been poured out about this case. I'm allowing Mr. Koberger to make a record, okay, because that's something that that has been raised by you and your clients, that there's not a record to saying about narrowing or being more specific. One of the questions I heard you talk about prophylactic, and I think that's an interesting question when you talk about other options to deal with a fair trial. Going to another venue, for example, or
Sequestering.
Yes, thank you. That is complicated. It's expensive. It's time-consuming, and so if we can be prophylactic about it by limiting, okay, what lawyers who have a different standard, okay, lawyers who are actually directly involved in the case have more credence, okay, in the public, and that's a reason to restrict that. And that's why I don't like the term gag order, because nobody's really gagging about it, okay? These are lawyers who already are restrained by ethics.
Yeah, I like that shit. I was thinking of doing another Alien stream too, because we're going to get a lot of Alien updates. I've been thinking of doing that. So we might do that maybe tomorrow, because I don't have any notifications left. In about 4 hours, I'll have one more notification, but it'll be pretty late. I'm just going to leave that one for in case we get a chase. But maybe tomorrow we'll update the alien stuff.
And professionalism. So that's really what we're talking about, to kind of do what we can, even though I don't even think the media can really control all the information that's going out there every minute, right at this moment. And so this is not the same world as it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And it is troubling for the media, the ethical, hardworking media, and the information that's swirling around in the world. I don't know what the answer is, but it's a serious threat to a fair trial and the credibility of the media. It's just a side speech. I apologize.
And I'm not sure that anyone would disagree with that. I mean, we live in an age where finding out what the facts are is more and more difficult with every day. And both the participants in this criminal justice system, the court, lawyers for any party, and the members of the media, we all participate in systems that are designed to be fact-based, and that are designed, when they function well, to get the information out that's truthful and accurate, and through a process that is most appropriate. And I don't think anyone would disagree with you, Your Honor, that right now that there are certain, because everyone can have a blog or be on Twitter or be on, I mean, there are so many social media channels out there now that a person my age does not hardly know any of them. But those are all certainly out there. And no order from this court, respectfully, Your Honor, is going to reduce any of that. But when there's an order from this court that limits the ability for people who have actual facts and good information to provide statements about things like the court this morning that can educate people about the process. Certainly, no one's expecting that either Mr. Thompson or Ms. Taylor or Mr. Logsdon or Ms. Massoff are going to, if the court lists non-dissemination order, are going to run out and tell you everything they know about this case. They're not. And so I think, Your Honor, when you are, if the court, it sounds to me like the court is inclined to have some sort of Second Amendment non-dissemination order, I would urge you to make it as narrow as possible so that the actual facts can be relayed to the members of the media. And I think when you look at who the media coalition is that came before this court, I mean, this is a group of Idaho-based, some Washington State-based. It's hard to be in this part of the state of Idaho and not be completely familiar with Washington. And then some national outlets that continue to have an outstanding reputation. And what they want is for their reporters to be able to obtain accurate information, and information that is of the kind that is not, they understand the things that probably the lawyers are not going to tell them, but information that might help the public better understand all of this. Because the other thing that is just so, is the background of all of this, is these are tragic events that affected this community, the entire state of Idaho, and there's probably nobody who doesn't know, no one I know who doesn't know someone in Moscow who was affected by this tragedy. And I think as part of that, and there are people who really have an appetite for accurate information about this case. And what we would ask this court is not to have any sort of non-dissemination order that restricts the public's ability to understand these proceedings and to get accurate information.
Okay, so thank you. What I would like to see, maybe we all like to see, is the media actually doing more complete analysis of process, okay, and explain to the public why we do what we have to do in protecting a fair trial. I haven't seen any of that. Now, I'm not out there following the news carefully. I think our local press has been really fair and pretty balanced, and I appreciate that they are talking about some of the details and explaining kind of why things are happening. It would be nice to see.
This lady is representing the coalition of media, multiple media organizations that want the gag order to be less vague. They feel like it's too vague. So she's representing a bunch of like media companies, the Associated Press, like a bunch of media people joined together.
More of that instead of the sensationalizing that we are seeing in the national media. So, and by the way, I haven't made a decision at this point. I mean, when I ask questions like this, I'm testing my thoughts about where we might end up. So, I don't know if you want to address anything else about the evidence or further your argument. I kind of interrupted you there.
Your Honor, I think we've made it all the way through the things that I had hopefully planned to tell the court about the standard it should use to analyze this, the reasons it should vacate the current non-dissemination order, and then our thoughts on if the court is inclined to look at a different measure to ensure a fair trial, that it use some of those tools that are available to it other than a non-dissemination order, particularly when realistically the trial in this case is probably at least 2 years out because of all the things that the defense will have to do if this is a capital case, and they'll do it well. And you don't do that in I'm bad at math, 4 months.
That remains to be seen.
I understand.
I understand what you're saying too. So, and you're sticking to strict scrutiny.
Yes, Your Honor. I think for 2 reasons, Your Honor. The first is that because we view it as a prior restraint, and because in order to both, it has to be, in order to report information, you have to be able to gather information. And I would direct the court to page 15 of our brief for that. And then separately, Your Honor, when the court is balancing 2 competing constitutional rights, we would submit that the court has to apply strict scrutiny. I think that's on page 19 of our brief, Your Honor. And then finally, I would say, Mr. Logsdon submitted a bunch of materials to the court. If the court's inclination is to sort of give them the weight they deserve, I'm not sure I'll spend a lot more time on it, other than I wanted to point out those 2 quick errors that I was able to find in Ms. Salcier's tables. But we submitted declarations from reporters who I think their experiences illustrate sort of what happens when you have an overbroad non-dissemination order like this, where people who really are not involved in the proceedings, people who are being asked about topics that aren't really directly related to the facts of the case, they're citing the non-dissemination order for reasons they can't talk to the media. And that just, I think, sort of reinforces why you're going to get the things that we see on social media and the internet, and the things that the court will express concern about.
Well, let's just, one of the problems there is, I think that that a lot of the media were suggesting that the order was much broader than it actually was. And so maybe people responded to that. The other option would be that they were just using it as an excuse because they didn't want to talk to a reporter. That's their right, right?
Absolutely, Your Honor. That's what they said to the reporters, and that's what those reporters said in their declarations to the court.
So let's just say,
I added noise suppression. I don't know if you're gonna be able to tell a difference or not. There's not much you can really. I don't want to mess with audio live because there's a 30-second delay. It would take forever to bounce back and try to figure back and forth. I'd have to do it off air. But yeah, it's kind of like it's really, really bad audio. And I had to really bump it up, and so you're hearing extra background noise and stuff.
for the sake of discussion, that if I just lifted this order, what?
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, yeah. So I put audio. I put suppression. I didn't know that actually worked. I tried it for the first time because I saw what. I mean, it works on my mic. I know that for sure, but I never tried it on the desktop audio. And I saw what who was saying that. Doing my best was saying that, so I tried it out. Okay.
The media doesn't already have. You want to be able to talk to the prosecutor You want to talk to the defense attorney? I mean, how far does that go? You know that you just can't open their files.
Absolutely. It would just allow them, it would allow Mr. Lawson, if he wanted to respond to the question in the manner that he did in court today about why Mr. Koberger, stood silent instead of mentioning Jesus, it would allow him to respond. It might help them describe what's going on in the court. Something happened in court today. And can you explain what that term means? Things like that. It happens pretty routinely in lots of other criminal cases. It might also then take away at least law enforcement agencies in other locations who are reluctant to respond to public records requests because they're concerned about running afoul of a non-dissemination order issued in another state. There would simply be better sources of information available to reports. But again, everyone
So you're saying judge sounds great, can't hear her?
would still have the opportunity to say, I choose not to speak with you. But they wouldn't be prohibited from doing so by the court.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Do you want me to just turn it off then? Well, let's see who else speaks.
Your Honor, the parties discussed Mr. Logston making his presentation first.
Yeah, that's true, Brittany, right? It just sounded like mumbling the entire time when she was talking. I don't know.
Well, we do things a little differently, I guess, because I'm used to putting the evidence on an enemy argument. I'm a little wrong because we.
He's kind of muddled too, though. They really don't have the best audio set up.
Yeah, argument. You can go ahead and come in.
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't know until we were.
I understand. So, hey, I'd like to start by moving the court to take additional notice of the press materials that we provided, and essentially have the court acknowledge that it has the power to take additional notice of the press coverage in this case.
So, over objection.
And then we'd like to call Ms. Jean Saucier. She is available to you.
Your Honor, you may have been
Yes.
suggesting this.
Come on up.
May I come back up to
Yes,
this?
come on up.
Oh, Lord.
And may Mr. Colon come up as well, so if
Yes. Mr. Brown.
They're saying worse sound now, so you want me to take it off?
So,
Worse sound. Okay.
Saucier, is that right?
Yes.
Ms. Saucier, could you please raise your right hand?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Could you please state your name and spell your last for the court reporter?
Yes, Your Honor. Jean Saucier, SJeanSaucier.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Logston?
Ms. Saucier, how are you employed?
I am employed with a company based in Nebraska, headquartered in Nebraska, called TrueScope.
And what is it that that company does?
TrueScope is a global media monitoring and measurement company. We provide media intelligence data.
And how long has TrueScope been doing that?
TrueScope has been doing this for 3 years. The company that I worked for previously was acquired by TrueScope. That company was Universal Information Services, and that company had been performing media monitoring and intelligence services for over 50 years.
What does that mean, media monitoring and intelligence services?
What that means is
that we, companies such as ours, provide data to corporations, organizations, both in the profit and nonprofit world, to show what's being written about or talked about or communicated about their company or other type of maybe projects or things that they're working on in the world. And media companies pull in that data to show return on investment for maybe a for-profit company or other key messages that are being written about or talked about.
And approximately how many clients rely on that service right now?
Currently, we have about 270 clients throughout the world.
And when it comes to how are you able to collect this data? Is it kind of an algorithm? How does that work?
So it is, there's a lot of technology behind it, but sort of broadly speaking, the way that our system works is it will ingest content. We have licensed data sources that provide to us content via API. That content is pulled in from all media types, from broadcast, print, social, the web, and that is pulled in via API. And then where that content is housed and stored for the front end of a web platform where our clients can review that data, filter that data, chart that data, and that's how they can see what those messages are and where they're sort of have a gauge on the important content of what they need to see.
And what's your role in this?
My role at TrueScope is I've been with the company TrueScope, previously Universal Information Services, for almost 8 years. I'm Senior Vice President of Client Success.
And in that position, what kind of knowledge do you have of the way in which the company performs its task of collecting this information?
So I am very involved in the customer support, training, onboarding, client demoing. Demos, something that we do to show what the platform looks like, what it can do, the capabilities, the features, functionality. I also lead the team that provide and produce curated reports. We do that for media insight, and we do that for executive daily news briefing.
And what's your understanding of how accurate the data that you gather and produce is?
Our data is extremely accurate and authentic. We are not, our clients rely on us and have relied on us for a long period of time to have data that's coming from licensed sources, the top data sources that are
the Wilson Dallas said, is this about plugging her company or what? The Tina Attorney 11, thank you so much for the super chat, super sticker. Appreciate that.
Able to provide that data. And
I heard there was some static in this thing, but I haven't really seen any static at all. Just a minor thing at the beginning. It's an hour and 40 minutes long, and we're 57 minutes in. I mean, not that interesting to me so far. I mean, just, I don't know, from my perspective, but it's kind of the same thing. They're just trying to get less restrictions on the gag order.
And I'm
Dr.
not a
Lewis?
developer, so I can't speak to the technical details of
Nothing,
the
Jess.
ingestion, but our data and the algorithms that we use to process that data is extremely accurate.
Is your company a member of any associations? Is there anybody that makes sure that you're following whatever kind of rules you have to abide by to make sure that you're providing accurate data?
Absolutely. We are a member of the International Association of Measurement and Evaluation. That's the leading global, it's called AMEC, and that's the global organization that oversees evaluation and measurement. We also are members of CBEC, which is the World Media Intelligence Congress. The president of our North American company, Todd Murphy, is an executive, he's on the executive board, and he is.
I wish we could speed this shit up. Sam's Galaxy says her peeps here seem to be saying the cross is awesome. Yeah, I wish. I was looking for that for a second, but this is on a website, so yeah. She a gamer?
Do you know if you have any kind of margin of error for what you guys produce?
The margin of error for media monitoring is really very low, and that is any margin of error would be as a result of what was published. If something was published inaccurately, we would have that same margin of error.
So you don't get wrong whether or not something was published?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So the fact that something was published and is related to your client's request, you're 100% certain that it's always going to be a story related to that?
Yes, based on keywords and parameters that we utilize from the client to pull that data.
I see. So we contacted you in this case, is that right?
Yes.
And what is it that we asked you to do?
You asked us to begin to monitor content for all media types about the case.
Yeah, how did we set that up?
Thank you, Tina.
So we set up the workspace or the platforms, as we call it, and the report. We do that internally with our team of experts. But in order to set up the terms, the messages, and the names for tracking, you provided that to us.
And as a result of that, did you create some, I don't know what we're going to call them, graphs for the court today?
Yes, we did.
And is that what we have labeled as Exhibit A?
Yes.
And is everything in that true?
Yeah, I wonder. She didn't really say what the margin of error is, right? I don't know. She said there's a small margin of error, but she didn't say what.
Accurate as to what it is that you created using the software that your company runs?
Yes, it is.
She
move to admit Exhibit A.
Any objection?
For purposes of this hearing, no, Your Honor, but I would preserve my objections regarding whether this is appropriate expert information. I'll have to address some of that on cross.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the prosecution's like special witness or something, some witness.
No objection.
Okay.
Right?
Anything to respond to that objection?
I guess I'll wait and hear what the rest of that objection turns into, Judge.
Okay, well, I'll accept that. But I'll admit this for purposes now, the limited purpose that Ms. Olson has described.
So, Ms. Olson, do you have the exhibit on your screen?
I do.
And is it the same exhibit that was attached to the PDF file, the filing that we did in this case?
Yes.
Can you do a share screen at the first page of that?
Yes.
So this is the first page that we see after the big Exhibit A that I put on the front of it, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what is it that we see in this, I guess we call it a slide?
This is a report that we exported from the TrueScope platform.
Total volume of impressions, unique authors, metrics over time, key phrases in data sheet 2, top people mentioned in data sheet, top organizations, top locations. Media
On
type.
June 6th, containing data from November 13th, 22 through June 6th, 23. It contains volume, potential impressions, unique authors,
I should have figured she was going to read it.
metrics over time.
Me too,
key
TT Cross.
phrases in
She's
that
rough.
particular data set, top people mentioned in that data set, organizations mentioned in that data set, locations, and media type.
Can you go to the next page?
Data miners.
And what do we see here?
This is an aggregate total of volume, potential impressions, and unique authors.
That's it. It's 46,000. And total volume. Okay. Total potential impressions 2.1 billion.
Between the date
That's potential though.
of November 13th of 2022 and the 6th of June 2023.
What does total volume mean?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I'm a little muffled.
What does total volume mean?
Total volume is an aggregate total of the volume of media coverage for that time period.
So that's every...
That's every media, for every type that we're tracking.
And then what are potential impressions?
Potential impression is a metric that shows it takes into consideration circulation to show what the readership might be.
Might be.
What the potential total readership might be.
So if that number right there is 2.1 billion, you're telling us that potentially there have been 2.1 billion readings.
I don't think so. Because impressions are usually, I mean, it depends how it's measured. Impressions could just be scrolling on Twitter, not even reading the shit, scrolling right by it, not actually clicking. We need like a CTR, click-through rate. I mean, that sounds nice. That sounds high. I mean, maybe overall, but I don't know, like this impression shit. Impressions, I mean, I don't know, maybe if I'm thinking it wrong. Impressions could just be fucking scrolling by it. That's how, like, sometimes Twitter views are way higher sometimes than they really are. There's different ways people use measurement. YouTube does different measurements. There's impressions when you scroll by, but then actually views, it takes like, I don't know how many seconds before they consider it an actual view. Facebook views are a lot easier too because they'll count somebody scrolling by as a view and shit. They actually haven't even viewed it.
Correct.
I think we can probably guess the unique authors. I take it as just how many different people have written about this.
Correct.
Can we go on to the next page, please?
Yes.
And what do we see here?
Yeah, what she said, yeah, extremely accurate and authentic. Potential is hypothetical. Yeah, I mean, the hypothetical shit is like,
This is metrics over time between the 13th of November and the 15th.
I guess they wouldn't be able to tell for sure because it's just they're measuring from the outside. Like, they're not actually, I don't know.
June of 2023, November of 2022, to the 6th of June of 2023. And this is a chart looking at volume, potential impressions, and social engagement. Social engagement, it refers to how widespread social shares are. So engagement, shares, likes, etc.
So based on this, we can see that it looks like there's never a time when there aren't publications of some kind coming out about this case.
That's correct.
Why does the potential impressions bump go way up back in January and has completely fallen off even as the volume and social engagement go up.
The potential impressions typically is going to rise if there has been some significant event on a particular day or in a particular time period.
Okay, but why is it precipitously dropped even as all these stories are coming out? Are you frozen?
No, I'm thinking. I'm not sure that I have a clear answer for that.
So would that tell us that the stuff that's coming out as the volume of stories increases, that there are fewer people looking at whatever kinds of stories those are?
Objection leading.
I mean, I think with this, she sounds kind of unsure. I don't know. I thought she's the expert. I mean, I don't know how they're measuring their potential impressions, but I mean, this potential impressions versus volume and social engagement could be that the media is still posting shit, people are still interacting, but not as many. It's not hitting as many. I don't know. Not as many people are watching. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why that. How would that be? Volume and social engagement. Still posting shit, but it drops off. Potential impressions.
I'm not sure that I have a clear answer for that.
So would that tell us that the stuff that's coming out as the volume of stories increases, that there are fewer people looking at whatever kinds of stories those are?
Yeah.
Objection leading.
It's a little sad that he had to take her there. I would think that she would know that. I mean, that's the only kind of logical thing. I'm still a little confused by it, but yeah, it could be that less people are watching or there's less reach. I mean, just look at the shit now at Kohlberger. There's 500 people here. Had this been like months ago when the story was, there would have been way more people, a lot of people here and stuff. But there's still big creators that cover this stuff, or maybe even small ones that like are getting tons of view on this. But there's definitely not the same interest as there was before.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so she was frozen?
You can answer the question. The question was...
Okay.
She wanted you to repeat it.
The question was...
Yeah, I don't know. Did she make the graph? Or did they do it for her? I thought maybe she would do it.
This tells us that even though there's a lot of stories coming out, for example, in May, the actual circulation of those stories is pretty low.
Yes, that would be accurate.
Okay. Can we go to the next page? What is this?
This is what we call a word cloud, and it is a chart that we have as part of the TrueScope system that shows what some of the key phrases are in any data set with any particular date range. In this case, November 13th through the November 13th, 2022 through June 6th, 2023. And what it's showing is what some of the keywords, key phrases that are organically pulled into the data set based on the parameters we set up. The larger wording means that there are more, the volume is higher for the larger the words are.
Can you go to the next page?
Yeah.
This one, is there anything we need to know about this? It seems self-explanatory.
I think it is fairly explanatory. Again, it's top people mentioned in the data set for that same time period of November 13th through
Ethan Chopin, Kaylee, Xana, Brian of the and James Fry.
June 6th. And again, this is looking at all media types.
Next page.
This is top organizations, same will apply with.
CNN at the bottom. It's the University of Idaho.
Within that time period, the parameters that we have set up, these are the top organizations or companies that are listed.
And the next page.
And same thing here, top locations in the data set between the 13th of November of 22 to the 6th of June 2023.
That is a really weird chart. I think somebody said News Nation. I'll skip back, but I don't know. Top organizations mentioned. So they have CNN, but then, okay, University, Associated Press, but they don't put all these other media outlets that were, I would say, way bigger than CNN at the time. Right? News Nation was big. Fox was big. I'd say way bigger than CNN. I feel like CNN was such a small little. Did anybody even talk about CNN? How does that even make the top organizations mentioned in the data sheet? That's kind of weird. Were they even big into the case like that? I mean, I know they did some coverage, but there was other way more media platforms that were like doing around the clock coverage.
And the next page.
It's odd.
And same thing here, top locations.
Or TV, right? Long. I think long term.
13th of November of 22 to the 6th of June 2023.
And the next page.
And this is a media type breakdown in a pie chart format between the 13th of November 2022 to the 6th of June 2023. And it's just showing the percentages of content within each media type.
And the next page.
They put some of those colors so close to each other you can barely distinct it. Online, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. I mean, I guess the hell, it's like lighter, barely lighter shades. Okay.
Between the 13th of November 2022 to the 6th of June 2023. And it's just showing the percentages of content within each media type.
And the next page. All right, wow. So it's the one that everybody wants to talk about. Can you give us an understanding of what it is that we're looking at here?
Yeah, this is a chart that our Media Insights team created based on the content that we exported from the TrueScope platform into a Excel file, PDF, and then charted it on this graph, and it is showing the content for each authority figure and what we call share of voice.
True. They have TV, but not YouTube. I'm thinking they're putting YouTube together with online, but that's weird because they mentioned Instagram and Twitter. It's a very weird chart. I don't know.
That's volume and impressions, and that's showing the time period of 11/13 of 22 through 4 of 23.
Can you explain the share of voice a little bit better?
Sure.
How do you know? I mean, it makes it sound like, if, for example, we're talking about the Moscow police, they get to talk, I guess, what, the most? I mean, what does that tell us?
Sure. So what this is showing, the Moscow police, let me focus up a little bit more. So the Moscow police have the highest volume in the data set, and then we put that number in that data set, and the volume is in blue and the potential reach is in the darker. It's purple, but it looks more blue here. So the Moscow police have the highest volume in the data set. That meant that they were featured or quoted or somehow listed in 24,585 stories. With that, they have the large potential reach, which is potential impression. And you see over to the right that we have potential reach listed on the right-hand column side. And so that is at almost 62 million impressions. So that means that and I'm not, I don't know that you want me to interpret the data, but this is an aggregate look at how far the potential of the messaging from each of these names and or organizations went through the data set.
And to the extent that you have listed David Nye instead of Jeff Nye, is that our bet?
Impressions are a really funny thing. So that video, okay, so this video that I did 8 hours ago, that number is such a thing that like makes people, oh my god! Impressions is such a, I mean, it's good to know, but it goes deeper than impressions. So this video from 8 hours ago has 8.2 thousand views. That video has 57,000 impressions. Okay. So like, let me show you. I mean, I get it, but they're like also blowing it up. I mean, this is how I'm looking at impressions. 57,000 impressions. Click-through rate is more of an important thing. 9.2% click-through rate. Watch time from impression hours, 931 hours. Views from impressions, 5.4 thousand views. So, I mean, there's just a lot more that goes. I don't know how they broke it down. You know, there's so many things that affect impressions. You got a good title, you got a good thumbnail. Are they actually clicking the shit? You know, this says here it has a 9% click-through rate. I forgot what they said is decent. There's a whole bunch of shit that goes into click-through rates. And then there's watch time, because there's people that they'll clickbait the hell out of something. So you might get people to actually click the shit, but then are they going to stay and watch? Then that affects your watch time, and then your average watch time, like your retention and shit. There's just so much shit that goes into that. It's very, you know, and YouTube looks at that. So you might be getting people to click this shit off of some clickbait stuff, but then are they actually staying and watching?
We did not change any of the names that you provided.
Okay, next page, please. So this is essentially the same thing. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct.
And in terms of the concept of what's authority versus non-authority, where did that come from?
Who are these
Authority
people?
versus
Oh, Jennifer Carpenter was on
non-authority.
the non-authority figures share a voice. I wonder how they got this data too, because you would think some of the bigger YouTubers, some of the huge YouTubers would be on here. Maybe that's coming down the line. I don't know. But I don't know. Skippy, Rebecca, Victoria. Who's these people? Neo Post, Northeastern Post, 241 Chum Gum, Lady Diggin, Jane Hathley, Mark Levy, and then Jennifer Coffindaffer. I don't know. Maybe these are big people, but I don't know. Some like random generated usernames or some shit.
And in terms of the concept of what's authority versus non-authority, where did that come from?
Authority versus non-authority came from your office.
I guess what she said came from
Me, Judge.
I couldn't even hear what the hell she said either.
Oh, you. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Concept of what's authority versus non-authority, where did that come from?
Authority versus non-authority came from your office.
I guess what she said came from
Me, Judge.
Oh, you. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Next page, Judge. I mean, sorry. Associate. And this is just another slide comparing.
Hey, Shannon Gray is the attorney for the Gonsalves family. I don't know who Rebecca Boone is. I need to look at that. And Jennifer Coffindaffer.
Mr.
This was
FBI.
Yeah.
FBI.
so this slide. You would your office asked us to prepare for these particular names to do a share voice chart showing what each of them where each of them fell in the data sets and on the chart.
Is that the last page? Are we done yet?
Then we have a terms and time.
Okay. All right, well, I don't believe I have any other questions.
So this thing here too, the only thing I'm going to touch on this, authoritative versus non-authoritative. This is a term that YouTube uses that they switched around the algorithm a while. I don't know how long ago. It was pretty long time ago. Authoritative use YouTube. So they promote authoritative news. This was a while back, and so like it's kind of a little tough sometimes because unless there's no other news covering it. So like if, for example, Brian Kohlberger at the top of the search, most of the time, unless you're subscribed or something like that, but most of the time you're gonna see a lot of these news channels pop up first. Let me do this. Let me open this in incognito mode. They'll sometimes do it to, if you're a subscriber, you watch certain people. Actually, it's actually not bad. I see Emily Baker, JLR's popping up. Crime Talk. Okay, I don't know. I'm surprised. I typed in Brian Kohlberger. I see the news at first, but they used to do it that your thing is like pages behind. Oh, Trump delivers remarks. I forgot about that. Trump! Who's the Trump? This is all fake. Majority of it is big YouTubers, but it's actually mixed. I'm surprised. I wonder if they're changing things around. This was from months ago, though. Jennifer's on Cuomo all the time. So authority figures are experts who are currently working on the case. Non-authority figures are experts who currently work in or formerly worked in the field. Okay, maybe that's why they didn't put all these YouTubers and stuff. Police or FBI, laws such as lawyers or other court-related personnel who are not working on this case. Probably would have had more fun watching Trump.
For you, but you may get some from some of the other attorneys.
It's Trump.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logston.
Remember, I have a hard copy of Exhibit A. Does the court want that to place in the record?
Yes, please. I'll be admitted. Defendants A. Mr. Rudley, you want
Camera arguments towards the end.
to weigh in at all?
We have no questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Saucier. My name is Wendy Olson. I represent the Intervenor Media.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Saucier, where are you coming to us from?
Do you mean my location?
Yes.
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
And when did the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office hire you for the work that you've done in this case?
The first day of our agreement was February 15th, 2023.
So February the 15th of 2023?
That's correct.
And in all the data that you've shown here in court and are in Exhibit A, I know that starts at November 13th of 2022 and goes to June 4th of 2023. Why did you start with November the 13th of 2022?
Because that is the date that our client asked us to begin searching, and we were able to pull in historical content previous to the agreement or the data we started searching for media type.
And I apologize, Associated, but the copy of your report that I have, it's Exhibit A, doesn't have any page numbers that are in it. But if you could look at, I mean, let's just pick the one that is, metrics. Well, let's start with the first one. I guess it's page 2 of Exhibit A. If you wouldn't mind putting that back up, ma'am, so we can see it here in court.
Sure.
No page number.
Right there.
Page 2.
Yep. No, so the one above that, the first thing is total volume, 46K. All right, and this one, is there any way that we can tell from this slide how much of that volume occurred from November the 13th of 2022 to December 30th of 2022?
Not from this slide, no.
And is there any way we can tell from this slide how much of that total volume occurred after January the 13th of 2023?
Not from this slide, no.
And then would that be the case for all of those slides, that from looking at anything in Exhibit A, the only thing it tells us is what happened over that large period of time, and it's not broken down by date set, correct?
From this slide, it is not broken down.
Yeah, and so if we go to the one
It's a narrow date set.
I apologize. And for the one that says authority figure share of voice, and again, I don't have the pages, so I apologize. And that one there that says, Moscow police and is just under 25,000. You can't tell us how many of those were before December 30th of 2022, how many were after that, how many were before January the 13th, and how many were after that. Is that correct?
Not from this slide, that's correct.
And Ms. Associate, when Mr. Longston asked you the question about David Nye, I assume you don't know who David Nye is, correct?
If you mean personally, no, I do not.
Well, at all. Do you know who he is by, have you learned who he is in the course of all of this?
I did not spend a lot of time looking up or researching any of the authority figures or the non-authority figures.
You just took the information that Mr. Logston provided to you, is that right?
That's correct.
And so you have no idea of knowing whether in fact the person is an appropriate person to include in the data set as an authority figure, or if they're not. Is that fair to say?
We utilize the name that we were given from our client based on their knowledge and expertise.
And do you have, as some of the information that you prepared, is there an addendum anywhere where we can look in order to evaluate your information at that list of names that were provided to you by Mr. Logston?
I'm not sure that I would have the authority to provide that to you.
Okay, well that's data that you used in your analysis, right?
That's correct.
And with respect to this data set, what do you mean by that, the data set? What is that?
The data set is the volume of coverage that is in our system based on the dates that we have filtered for. So in this case, for these slides, we filtered 11, 13, 22 through the date that we created these, each particular chart. In this case, June 4th, 23, to get the most accurate data set, most up-to-date data set.
All right, but what's in that data set? Is it a whole bunch of, is it 20 different media sources that you run the search terms against, and then somewhere downloaded is all
of
the stories or whatever you want to call them that come back when you run that set?
So in the platform for the workspace that we have set up for our clients, all of the content that we have ingested since we started working with that client, and this is the case for any client, any coverage that has come in through our system that has been tagged, for lack of a better word, to just try to explain it, that has been pulled into our system is in a platform, a workspace, a web-based workspace, and we have access to pull all of that data or to filter based on a name or organization or any number of many other filtering options.
Okay, I'm still, I guess maybe I'm just not understanding how you get the data set. So is it, let's say on November the 13th of 2022, somebody ran a story about a 911 call made to the Moscow Police Department, and it runs and it's an Associated Press story, so it runs somewhere initially, and then it gets picked up by a bunch of other people. How does that get captured in this data set that you're talking about?
So from how that gets captured into this data set is through the front end of our system. That data resides and is housed and stored as, so let's say it was an AP story that is in, that has fulfilled the parameters that we're searching for. That story will be in the workspace, in the platform, and we're able to pull that based on filtering parameters. Let me try to explain it a little bit more clearly.
And are you looking at something, ma'am?
Pardon me?
Are you looking at something as you're trying to provide an additional explanation of what this is?
Tell it, baby.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But we use the front end of our platform, which houses the data that's pulled in from the back end of the platform, and that data is pulled in from our data sources, ingested in a number of different ways, primarily API feeds.
And so is the data like a news story about that they've given you one of the terms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so it's the published content. I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear about it. It's the published content.
So the actual story would be there, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And for whether the actual story is in there, to put these charts together, you went through and just basically counted in how many of those stories certain terms appeared. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's no effort to like qualitatively examine what the story has, right? It's simply a counting exercise about how many times certain terms
Rachel,
appear
oh my
in the
God.
various media sources that get ingested into your platform. Is that
You're
right?
so nice.
Yes, in this case, and in many of the cases for our clients, we are looking at quantitative total versus qualitative.
And a lot of times, it's because you want to see what sort of phrases your clients want to see, what sort of phrases are catching on with the media, right?
There could be any number of reasons for doing that.
Including that, right? You know, if you have a new like slogan, someone might hire you to see, hey, is our slogan being picked up on Twitter or those sorts of things? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, and that's sort of where that idea comes around for that word. I forget what you called that, the word thing where some of the words were bigger than others.
Correct.
Yeah. And so, Ms. I have a few more questions for you, Ms. Saucier, although probably everyone else in the courtroom should want this one, sure. So with respect to these charts where I'm now this.
Rachel, thank you so much. Holy moly. Send me $100 for you and Maddie to have a daddy-daughter date. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're doing the zoo this week. I don't know what we're doing Sunday yet. I don't want to say what day zoo yet because in case somebody's searching for me out there, I don't want them to know what day I'm going to be there. But it's happening this week. Thank you so much because this thing is kind of dragging. I can't lie. I was like, yo, we should have just watched Trump, man. At least it would have been entertaining.
Authority figures.
I mean, it's getting a little interesting now, but it took a long time to get there.
Share of voices. The next one is a non-authority figure share of voice, correct?
Correct.
And you said that that's a term that came from the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so that's not a term that you ordinarily use in the work that you do through TrueScope?
That's correct.
Okay. And it says and I read your definition, and it must be the one that was provided to you that's on, it's not on that page, but it's two further. And it says non-authority figures are experts who currently work in or formerly worked in the field of law enforcement, police or FBI, law, such as lawyers or other court-related personnel, but who are not working on this case, correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, well, that's information that was provided to you, right?
Correct.
And so you didn't like use really any expertise there. You just used the definition they gave you and counted some stories that had these names in them. Is that right?
Circulation impressions should be considered as opportunities to see. That's what I was saying. You notice, I don't even think they bothered reading that shit. Well, I mean, the prosecution didn't go down the list, but that's what I was telling you. That impression shit, it's cool, but it's a very, very small part of the numbers. Consider an opportunity to see a story, not the actual number of individuals view a story. I mean, it's important. It's an important number to look at because you know if your story is actually being shared. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're on YouTube, for example, and your impressions are really low, you might want to change some things, or maybe that video is being suppressed or whatever the reason is. So it is a good number to look at, but it's still, as I showed you with the live stream earlier, I think it was like 8.2 thousand views versus 57,000 impressions. Huge difference. That could just be people scrolling by. All the times you scroll on the internet, that's an impression. You're not actually watching the thing.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that question.
Okay. Well, let's back up to the one that says non-authority figures share a voice. Now, the one above that.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, yeah. Right there. And the person that has the highest number there, and I guess there's this other line that talks about potential impressions. I'll come to that in a minute. But this line that says Rebecca Boone.
It's almost over, guys. 10 minutes left. I appreciate the people writing out. I didn't watch it ahead of time because I like to watch it with you guys, but if I watched this ahead of time, I probably wouldn't even streamed it. It would be a very forced, hard stream to do, you know?
AP reporter, I take it that's information that was provided to you by the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office as well, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, do you know, I mean,
however,
do you know
however,
go ahead, ma'am.
As we're looking at media content, our platform pulls in the content and also takes us to that original published story. So we are able to see if something is written by a reporter, such as was the case here for Rebecca Boone.
Okay, but my point, so she's an AP reporter, but she's not, as far as you know, someone who currently works in or formerly worked in the field of law enforcement, correct?
I do not know anything about her background.
Well, would you agree with me that if she's never currently or formerly worked in the field of law enforcement, law, and those things previously, but is not working on this case, she would not fit the definition of non-authority figures that you used in your analysis?
They did good. I didn't hear which person they're talking about on this list. I'm sorry, I was really hungry, so I'm eating. I ordered my groceries. They came, but I also ordered like sushi from the same store, from Publix. So that's why I'm like snacking. But because I get aggy if I don't eat. But I didn't hear what person. I'm like, who are these people? I mean, I know Jennifer Coffeneffer. I feel like I've heard the Mark Levy. I guess these are the non-authoritative people that we read earlier. But who'd she get? Rebecca Boone? Oh shit.
That's correct.
And
This
did
one
you
money.
do any sort of quality control on this, Ms. Saucier, to determine whether, in fact, the individuals listed here were persons who currently work in or formerly worked in the field of law enforcement?
I did not do background research on the names that we were given from our clients, nor did I do background research on names that appeared organically in the data set, which many of these on this chart did.
And so you didn't check whether or not any of these people actually were currently or formerly working in law enforcement, right?
I did not do a deep dive into anyone's background.
Yeah, this was a pretty bad chart. Pretty bad.
Including Ms. Boone's.
That's correct.
And Ms. Saucier, would it be fair to say that there's a number of journalists here in the courtroom today, and that if they all write a story about this and talk about your presentation, and indicate that you had things in your chart that referred to Ms. Boone, and that I asked you questions about Ms. Boone, into your data set are going to pop all of those other stories, or stories that refer to Rebecca Boone. Is that right?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure, it was kind of long. It's a bad question. So, Ms. Saucier, there are a number of journalists here in the courtroom this afternoon, and if they all write stories about this hearing and mention that there were slides in your presentation that referred to Rebecca Boone, and you were asked questions about Rebecca Boone, those stories they write that refer to Rebecca Boone would then pop up in your data collection that your firm is doing for the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office, correct?
Stories may pop up, but based on volume, they wouldn't necessarily have a very large share of voice if we were to be charting or looking at them from that path.
My question was just whether they would pop up in your data set.
They would pop up in the data set if it was about the case, yes.
And you're familiar with the Associated Press, I take it, Ms. Saucier?
Yes.
And you know how they work. A reporter for the Associated Press may write a story in Moscow, Idaho, and once they put it up on the wire, that could get picked up in all sorts of exciting places like Des Moines, Iowa, where I went to college, or let's say Crete, Nebraska, right outside of Lincoln, or any of those places, right?
Yes.
And they might run, because they run in a different publication, they're going to be counted as a different story. Is that right? In your data set?
Correct.
Ms. Saucier, I have a question about, I think it's on 2 pages later. It's the second page of your Exhibit B. And is that in evidence?
B is not.
All right.
We
Well,
can
then,
put it in evidence.
yeah, well, it's submitted to the court. So I don't mind offering Exhibit B. Do you have that with you, Ms. Saucier?
I would move to admit B. Okay, no objection?
No, I thought I was offering it, but that's all right.
You are. Well, okay.
Anybody who wants to offer it can.
All right. It's a dual offer. I'll accept that, no objection.
We all love Exhibit B. And so I apologize, Ms. Saucier, and I know it's late in the day, but your document was upside down. So is there any way you can turn that so?
Yep.
All right, so if we go down to, on the second page of the text of Exhibit B, it says impressions. And you recall discussing that term when Mr. Lawson was asking you questions?
Yes.
And so you say here that circulation impressions should be considered as opportunities to see a story, correct?
That's correct.
And not the actual number of individuals who read or viewed the story, correct?
Yes.
And so there's no guarantee whatsoever on any of the potential impressions that anybody read the story, correct?
That's correct.
And there's nothing that any of this that tells us that what was in the story, correct? Other than maybe these terms.
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. And there's nothing in any of what you've provided to the court that tells you what is in a story other than the terms that you were asked to search for. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I'm still a little unclear on what you're asking.
Sure. In the data set that you gathered, well, strike that. In the exhibits that you put together, Exhibit A that you testified about, and then Exhibit B that's on the screen now, there's nothing in that that tells us what the substance of a story is other than it had certain terms in it, correct?
That's correct.
Ms. Saucier, have you ever testified in court as an expert before?
I personally have not, but others in my company have.
Okay, what's our first time? This attorney, she's doing really good though, because if somebody doesn't know about impressions, you can get the wrong impression about the impression numbers, So, especially with this judge, I don't know, it's a good thing for her to like break it down and kind of clap back at it a bit.
And with respect to this particular exhibit and thing, what work did you do on this project?
I filtered and collected the data that we utilized in share voice charts, and I also produced, filtered, collected, and produced the first part of the chart that was produced on the platform. So
Yeah, and then what, if any, sort of quality control is there done to determine whether or not you pull the data accurately?
Just trying to think of how to answer that. So I'm trained on the platform. I know how to filter through the data, and I filtered through that data accurately. The data, the parameters that were in the keywords and search terms are set up accurately. So that gives us accurate results.
And have you ever used Westlaw, Ms. Saucier?
Not personally, but I'm familiar with, I know what it is.
So is the process you're describing sort of similar to running a search in Westlaw, and then you get a certain number of hits, and you know that that search term actually produced those number of hits because that's just the way the software works?
Similar. There's a little more to it than that, but that's a decent summary of how our systems
Mo.
our software may work.
I have just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Might be a bad look for the company, though. You might take a loss on this shit.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Saucier. Hope all is well in Chicago.
Do they get to rebuttal?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. And you're not seeking any questions, Mr.
No.
Okay. Your Honor. Mr. Bradley is saying no. Anything to follow up? Because then we're going to take a break. You want to follow up on any questions there? We're good, Judge. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Ms. Saucier. You can be excused. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? I'm getting an echo somewhere. Okay,
Oh.
from you, Ms. Saucier, you're excused. You can stay on if you want, but you probably have other things to do. So thank you for being here today. We appreciate your answers. So.
There's supposed to be another video, Rebecca said. I think it's 30 more minutes. I don't know if it starts playing. Damn, where's that at? Was that it? Oh, look at this. I got this playing in the background. Brian Kohlberger. Let me do a search. Rebecca said it was like a 30 more minutes or something to this. Oh, there's another one. Is it the same? No, this is this is the arraignment. No, yeah, that's the arraignment. That's the attorney. Defense wants Kramer's banned. Oh. I don't actually see it. Oh, there might be a chase. Rebecca earlier said that there was a video after this that's 30 minutes long, but I don't see it. And I thought maybe it was going to autoplay and it didn't. Rebecca! I mean, I'll be happy with the chase, though. Can't lie. I can't lie. Oh, CBS is en route already. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. There might be a chase. Spicy salmon. Oh, that sauce on there smells weird, though. Smells like there's mayo. Not mayo. I don't know what's in there. Maybe we do the chase, because I don't know where this video's at. That'd be nice if we get a chase. I'll just change to that. Let's start a whole new stream. I'll transfer you guys.
The documents that were found both at his vice presidential office
in
Chinatown in Washington, D.C., and at his home in Delaware. That case is ongoing.
Yeah, I'll start a new stream if the helicopters get there. If the helicopters get there, I'll just transfer you guys over. I'll start a new stream and I'll move you guys over there because I don't have any more notifications. So it'll be a help and a jump if I just transfer you guys. So we'll keep an eye. I wonder what's the ETA? CBS en route. I would rather much a chase. I mean, that stuff was kind of interesting to watch. I don't even know. I think saying interesting is a stretch. It was all right. For the layman's viewers. Maybe if there's maybe Emily Breaker, I'm sure she broke it down way better and had a lot of commentary.
But as I say, this will now be in the hands of a jury in a court who will make a judgment on whether Donald Trump is guilty or innocent.
It's detailed, isn't it, Mark? Thank you very much indeed for that. But at the bottom line...
Are California rolls considered healthy, or because there's rice around it, it's not healthy? Does that negate the healthy aspect of it? Or is it such a low amount of rice, it's not really that unhealthy? A huge stretch. Even a bad chase. Damn, Airdrie said even a bad chase, I'll take it. Fuck it. Let's see. Let me pull up CBS. CBS Los Angeles Live. I wouldn't get too excited though, because a lot of the times there was one chase that almost happened when we first started streaming. But it ended. I think there was a child in the car too, maybe. Hopefully, if it's not too far, it'll be there quick. Couple minutes.
Grand jury of ordinary people, and with that, they showed that there was enough evidence to proceed to trials. So Donald Trump's legal troubles were really not addressed tonight in Bedminster.
Trump's not in jail. A lot of people thought he was in jail.
It's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? You know, how he pictures himself from there on in. We talked there about the Presidential Records Act. Certainly I heard Republican representatives from the House of Congress, from the House of Representatives rather, in Congress, start to use that as an excuse, suggesting that that gave President Trump a 5-year period of grace, which was dismissed by commentators, I heard. You know, you may not be an expert in that act of 1978, but does that give him any leeway at all to manage these documents how he wanted to? Did he have time, as he said? He was in no rush to go through these boxes, you know, as he wanted to.
Well, he was given every opportunity to work with the archivist. He was given every opportunity to work with the investigators. Ultimately, he flouted a subpoena. He did everything that he could do to put himself in this situation. Presidential Records Act recognizes that the president has enormous power when in the White House. But, you know, Donald Trump becomes at noon on January 20th, after the election, he becomes a pumpkin and he's back to being an ordinary citizen. Whatever rights he has to review those documents, there are exceptions that are made. There are accommodations that are made. Presidents write books. Barack Obama wrote a book, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush. They want access to certain records. They do have access. They can be given access, but not this kind of unfettered, it's in my control. I decide what I'll do with it when I do with what these documents. I can put them anywhere in my home. That just doesn't fly. The president, former president, doesn't have that kind of authority, and the Presidential Records Act doesn't give him that authority.
Yes, and I read from that act, in fact, it establishes that presidential records automatically transfer into the legal custody of the archivist as soon as the president leaves office. So that, you know, feels quite categoric at that point, does it not? But I suppose in some respects, the more serious charge against him is the level of obstruction the indictment suggests he went through. For example, getting his co-defendant to move the boxes, even to New Jersey, where he is now. For you, in that indictment, what are the most serious, points, the counts against him that he will find it difficult to defend when it comes to trial?
Well, there's an old sentiment in American law, and the case of Richard Nixon pointed this out. The cover-up is worse than the crime. Now, in this case, the crime is significant in and of itself. But the cover-up here, this is Donald Trump. Again, classic Donald Trump, that he's in charge and he's the one who has the power. And that's sort of the kind of actions that he took. You're right, taking documents to New Jersey, hiding them, the indication that his lawyer, Mr. Corkman, who realized that he was being set up and was being used here.
Quiet. Oh, shit, we got a chase, motherfucker! Let's go, we gotta chase. Let's go, we gotta chase. Chase, 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 chase. This is what happens behind the scenes. I'm like I gotta make a new stream real quick, make a thumbnail, go live, put the audio on.
In and out of traffic now. I'm going to talk to the booth live on the air here. Do we know, is this an LAPD or is this now in CHP? We know it's
settings.
CHP jurisdiction, but has CHP picked this up?
Damn, that thumbnail shit never works.
We don't know yet, I guess. It's looking like we've got a BMW here, and it looks like almost like a stunt car driver, the way this person
the
is
time's cracking
through
reckless
traffic.
driver. Let's get it, baby.
And
let's get it.
are
Cheers.
Watching this person really fly. So this is in the San Gabriel Valley. We understand right now this is a CHP pursuit.
Quick enough.
You wonder if they may back off a little bit, or
Don't
even
back
move
off,
this thing into tracking mode, because this person is going so fast and changing lanes so frequently. This is really dangerous for all of the other innocent drivers who are just trying to get home after a long day of work and driving home in what is often rush hour traffic. And don't really suspect a car is going to be coming at over 100 miles an hour behind.
You guys ready?
In fact, we saw CHP and all authorities pull off the last pursuit
Let's
that
go.
we covered at the 6